Condoleezza Rice is the first African American and second woman to serve as U.S. Secretary of State. In addition, Rice was appointed National Security Advisor by President George W. Bush, becoming the first African American and second woman to hold this post. Condoleezza Rice has many accomplishments in her lifespan. However, her best achievement is becoming Secretary of State. She was born on November 14, 1954, in Birmingham, Alabama. She is the daughter of Presbyterian preacher and teacher. She grew up in the South, where racial discrimination was prevalent, and segregation occurred throughout. One instance of this was in 1963 at the church in Birmingham called 16th Baptist Church, where Rice attended. The church was a victim of a firebombing that killed 4 little girls while they were in the middle of Sunday school, and 2 of these little girls were really close friends with Condoleezza Rice. She excelled in piano, starting lessons at only 3 years old. She also took French and Spanish lessons early on. In addition to those talents, she also became a competitive figure skater. Much of her outstanding political success is attributed to how well she did in school. Rice entered the 8th grade at only 11 years old and graduated high school at 15 years old. She attended college at the University of Denver to study piano before switching to political science and graduating with honors at the age of 19. Rice returned to the University of Denver later on to earn her doctorate degree in international studies. Condoleezza Rice started teaching political science at Stanford University in 1981, focusing on the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. She taught, wrote, and publicly spoke a great deal on the Soviet Union and became an expert on the subject. Her political and extensive background in the Soviet Union helped pave the way for many of her future involvements. For example, she served as a special assistant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 1986. They are a group of military leaders who help advise the president in times of war. She also acted as a representative and traveled to Bulgaria in 1987 to speak to other Soviet representatives about controlling the spread of weapons. Just 2 years later, in 1989, she was named Director of the Soviet and East European Affairs on the National Security Council, where she became an important advisor to George W. Bush and helped and planned for countless meetings and events with Soviet leaders. She decided to return to teach at Stanford in 1991 until being asked to help George W. Bush campaign for president in the year 2000. She was appointed U.S. Secretary of State on November 14, 2004 by President George W. Bush. She was the first African American woman to serve the U.S. Secretary of State and also the second woman to hold this position. During her time in this position, she was very successful and accomplished a great amount. Condoleezza Rice wanted to expand the democratic government and believed in the idea of transformational diplomacy, where the U.S. sends diplomats to those areas where there are severe social and political trouble. When doing this, the diplomats address the issues of disease, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. They then try to aid these issues by setting up the position of Director of Foreign Assistance. Also, during her career of U.S. Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice has set up and negotiated several agreements in the Middle East, one of these being Israeli withdrawal to open up the Gaza borders of crossing in 2005, and the ceasefire between Israeli and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. Condoleezza Rice organized the Annapolis Conference of November 27, 2007. The main focus of this conference was to find a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian problem. A main focus during her term of the U.S. Secretary of State was to improve the human rights of the Iranians and supported the passage of the United Nations Security Council resolution to do so. Another issue on her political agenda was to improve nuclear relations with North Korea. However, her most successful negotiation was in 2008 with the signing of the U.S.-India Agreement of Cooperation concerning peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Condoleezza has had continued success, even in her recent years. In 2012, Rice and South Carolina businesswoman Darla Moore became the first women to become members of the Augusta National Golf Club, which had notoriously been known as an all-male organization that publicly restricted access to women. She currently still holds her position at Stanford University as a professor of political science, and she intends to spend her future there. Condoleezza Rice spoke at the 2012 Republican National Convention stating that, "My future is my students at Stanford, and in public service on an issue that I care about like education reform."